Okay, is it really started? I think it has now. Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. We are at the Podman community meeting. This meeting is generally used for discussing and demoing all things related to Podman or containers. We have topics that come in from people who request to present here, or sometimes I go out and find people to come on in, as I have for Will and Yigal today. So thank you to both of you for coming in to give us a demo. And if you have any thoughts for things that you'd like to present for future meetings, love to hear them. Love to have them come on up. We do this meeting every other month on the even number months. So our next meeting will be in February on the 7th, if I recall. Yes, February 7th. And so today we'll be talking about MinIO with a demo from Will Dines, and then embedding inside an AutoSD image from Yigal Blum. And with that, I think I'm going to stop presenting myself, and I will hand it over to Will. Well,
fantastic.
Actually, Blue Jeans is not behaving for me at the moment.
That's okay. See if I can get mine to share. Does everybody, hopefully everybody can see my screen now. Let me increase my slide size just a little bit for you.
Yes, it looks good to me.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Well, hi, folks. I am Will from MinIO. Any of you who've seen any of our videos on the YouTube channel have probably heard my voice a few times. Before I was with the MinIO, I was with a company called Elastic. Who cares? But before that, I was actually with Red Hat. I don't know if you can see my fedora hanging right on the computer up there. Just a little bit about me. I am part of the training division at MinIO these days. I'm responsible largely for the developer training. So my interest in Podman is really the ability for us to have a platform upon which we can actually run some test cases when we're doing our courses. And so we actually do this a couple of different ways. If we're doing a local delivery, we'll use Podman or something along those lines. Or if we're doing a delivery that's connected to the internet, we actually use the Hetzner Cloud to actually stand up an environment to work with. That's usually for the admin courses. The developers, they get to have their own local stuff and take it home and play with it. But just real quick, let me talk a little bit about what MinIO is all about. And MinIO is really that doesn't really look too. So what you get when you're dealing with the MinIO platform is a fully S3 compatible API. Amazon S3 really is kind of the de facto standard for cloud-based storage, object storage anyway. We also have object locking, so you can't delete or overwrite an object for a set period of time. We are integrated fully with single sign-on, with Okta and Ping and all that other fun stuff. It is encryption and tamper-proof. It is also, we have a Lambda compute system, which allows us to set up triggers. So if a new object gets uploaded, we can trigger some actions to happen on that, for instance. It is all fully erasure coded, and we have bit rot protection. If you lose drives, don't worry about it. Your data is safe because we have all of that backup. We have the system is very well replicated. We also include some object lifecycle management. So as your objects age out, you can transition them to different tiers. Maybe you want to move it into long-term storage, or maybe you want to move it into another cluster. And then last but not least, we have this fantastic server-side bucket replication, which enables this ability to have this failover setup that just runs automatically. My favorite part about this, by the way, coming from Elastic, is the active nature of it. That means that if you have two clusters that are doing this bucket replication, it doesn't matter which cluster you connect to upload a new object. In many cases, the active-passive means you have to have an active cluster, and then the passive cluster just replicates it. In our case, both sides can be active in that, and that means that the failover happens just that much faster. So it really is a really powerful tool for object storage. And the best part about it is that it's very easy to deploy. It's a very small server. It's less than 100 megabytes, which means you can install it practically anywhere. You can install it on your edge servers. You can install it on an Internet of Things device. Anywhere you want this S3 data layer available. And so this is sort of what you see. You've got your S3 API layer that connects to your direct attached storage, or you can connect to the cloud, or whatever you want it to connect to. So lots of different use cases for this. Big data, machine learning is very, very popular. We do a lot of machine learning work here at MinIO. If you are doing an HDFS replacement, high performance data, if you're doing a lot of streaming workloads, this is a great endpoint for that. Here's my favorite one, the multi-cloud environments. As you know, today, if you load up everything on Amazon S3 and then you suddenly want to move to Google Cloud, that's a lot of recoding because the APIs are different. Guess what? MinIO, if you are using MinIO to manage that data storage layer, MinIO deploys to Google Cloud. MinIO deploys to Azure. MinIO deploys to all these different systems, which means that you can move your data without being locked into any one platform, because MinIO runs basically anywhere you want it to. Okay, so this is a really great tool for long-term archival storage, disaster recovery, all that good stuff. All right, so what am I using it for? Let me go ahead and get into my demo here a little bit. What I generally use MinIO and Podman for is for a development environment. And so really what I'm looking at is the ability to really rapidly stand up a tool. Now, why am I using MinIO at this level? Because eventually, if my product gets popular enough, if my application gets popular enough, I'm going to move to the cloud, right? Everybody moves to the cloud eventually at this point. So what I want to do is I want to start the way I intend to finish. But at the same time, I don't necessarily, while I'm just futzing around and inventing this new application, I don't necessarily want to be paying Amazon or anybody else. So I can use the open source version of MinIO freely on my system. It's unsupported, it's community supported. Basically, what it comes down to is I can use MinIO locally to do all my fun stuff. And of course, if I don't want to install MinIO and I want to have some flexibility, I'm going to containerize that, right? And my containerization platform of choice, go fig, is Podman. That's why I'm here. So this is what I did here when I started firing this stuff up and started working with MinIO. And when I do all of my MinIO demos, I'm actually running all of those demos against my local MinIO system. So this platform that I'm going to work with, I'll go ahead and just do a quick demo here. There's a couple of different things that you want to keep in mind when you're doing this. Of course, when you're working with Podman on a Mac, like I am, you're going to have to stand up that machine. And the other piece of that is MinIO needs to attach to, at some level, actual storage. So what I need to do when I'm working with Podman is I need to exfiltrate my data down to my local file system. So what I'm going to do here is when I set up my Podman machine, I'm going to do an init with a volume, right? And I've made a copy of some data in temp data. That's my local system. And then I'm going to mount that in the Podman machine on MinIO/data. Okay? And that's it. This is going to pull down my new VM image because I haven't updated my my environment in a little bit. But it doesn't take very long. The nice thing about this is that I can now change where my data is stored on the fly. I actually have 4 or 5 different directories on my local system where I have MinIO data, depending on which demo I'm running, depending on which class I'm running. So all I have to do to switch classes is delete my Podman machine and recreate it. Easy as pie, right? Because all of the other information, that MinIO data and everything else, literally just lives in the Podman machine itself, and then I download and I install my particular container, get the container up and running, and I point it at that MinIO data directory that's on the machine, and I'm good to go. This is going to think for a little second. There we go. So let me go ahead and do that Podman machine start to get this all fired up. Okay, and this will just take a second. My system is Docker compatible. I've already done the Docker setup and all that other fun stuff to actually get all this stuff going. But now I've got my Podman machine. I've got my data mounted to my Podman machine. And give me just one more second while this finishes firing up, and we'll fire up our actual MinIO container as well. I have not had the machine start take this long in a little while, but that's okay. So other things that I do when I'm working with this particular setup is I'll make sure that I've got all of my data connecting to my local host. And in order to do that, I have a big command that I run to get all of this up and going. And I already typed this in once, so you don't have to watch me type it in slowly. When I run this container, there's a couple of ports I need. Port 9000 is how this container would talk to other containers. If I had multiple containers in my system, that's my API layer. And then 9090 is the console address. We actually have a fully functional console built into the MinIO platform. I've called this MinIO. There's my volume mount MinIO data is getting mounted to data so that my server knows that /data is where it lives. I can set my own username and password. If you don't, it's MinIO admin. Obviously, don't use the password I'm showing you here in production because that's a non-prod password, as it says. But we'll go ahead and pull this down. Doesn't take long at all. And there's my username password, and it's running, and we are good to go. So let me get my window back up here. There we go. And here's our MinIO console. Let me reload. To log in, I use the username and password I just set up, admin, and my password is non-prod password. Again, don't use that. And notice the data is already there. This is data that I copied from another location just for this demo, but all of the data is there. This is data that I used in a Aero demo for some machine learning content that we were working with. Also, I'm doing some MARP work. I've got some images there in the background. But this allows me to get all of this up and running very, very easily. I can set new users if I want to. I always have the admin one, but I have these other users available here. Again, if I'm going to actually run this in production, I want to make sure that I have specific users and so on and so forth that have particular policies. This one can do a read-write. I want to make sure that I have all of my access keys. If I have an application that needs to have an access key, I can set up a particular access key for that. Also, we have access to support. I can get information about the health of my system. I can get information about the performance of my system. But all of our support actually goes up to subnet, which is subnet.min.io. Our subnet community is where everybody can ask questions. You can raise issues if you are on a license. And beyond that, all of our engineers here at the company are part of the subnet community. So if you want an answer, you're going to get an answer from one of our engineers up there. So it's really kind of handy. Again, this whole thing runs less than 100 megs, so it's very easy to containerize. It's very easy to deploy it any which way you want. All right. That is pretty much everything I've got for you. The cool thing about all this is that when I want to move this to the cloud, I just migrate it to the cloud. The code that I write against this MinIO instance will work whether it's running locally in the cloud or anywhere in between. So it's all good stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and break there for questions if anybody has any.
Very quiet group of questions.
Obviously, I've just given everybody everything all at once there. They weren't.
Yeah, so I'll ask a question. I'm not familiar with MinIO, but I'm thinking of like potential use cases. So I'm wondering, like, could it be used as kind of a backup, essentially a backup solution? So if I'm running, so like my website has images, users uploaded images.
Yep.
If I could like essentially store those locally, but then have it essentially kind of in the background, saving them off into an S3 bucket or Backblaze or something, would it manage that dual purpose?
Absolutely, it would. So one of the nice things about this, I maybe need to lean into this a little bit more, is the fact that we are fully S3 compatible, and a lot of systems are already using S3 for backup. And so if I have an application or what have you that is using S3 as a backup layer, I can actually just drop in MinIO as a flat replacement. I don't even need to change any of the code. You can actually use MinIO with S3's API code, right? So if you're using S3's Python API, you can actually talk to MinIO with it. You don't have to use our code. So yeah, absolutely, using this as a backup solution would be a great way to do it. And of course, you can back it up to any cloud provider you happen to want.
The reason I didn't have a question is because we're already using MinIO and Red Hat testing.
It's funny you say that. When I left Elastic, I was like, yeah, I'm going to MinIO. And like 3 of the consultants at Elastic were like, oh, great. You can help us because we're actually using MinIO whenever somebody says they want to replace the S3 layer or they want to run S3 locally. And it's like, cool. Use MinIO. And then you can still use all the Elastic goodness that stores all the Elastic data to S3. Now you can use it with MinIO if you want to deploy it on-prem. We have a lot of or rather Elastic had a lot of customers who wanted to be able to deploy all their data on-prem rather than into the cloud, but they still wanted to have the S3 option. So we'd say, yep, okay, deploy MinIO, you're good to go.
Yeah. So what I wanted to emphasize is the fact that you can use the AWS SDK for that. You can use the AWS cloud. Like all you need to change is the endpoint, and then you'll get to wherever you want. We're actually using that in the image builder. Image builder has the ability to so the service itself will upload to AWS, but there is a capability for uploading to your own S3. And the testing is done through MinIO.
That is awesome. That's great. That is great. All right. That sounds to me like I'm handing it off, but that's okay because there he is. He's ready to go.
He's ready to go and ready. Yeah. So if you could, thank you, Will. Appreciate the
stop my screen share.
Yeah.
There we go.
Stop the screen share. You go. Am I butchering your name badly?
No, you're actually good. Yeah, it's always a question. Yeah, as long as I don't need to say my name is Bob or something. Can you see my screen? I don't know why I'm seeing that I'm sharing my screen, but I can't see that.
Yeah, you definitely are sharing. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so what I wanted to show you to talk about taking the build ones, run anywhere to the edge. Let's just see what it's all about. So we'll do some introduction. We'll talk about it. What does it mean? How do we reuse container images and Kubernetes YAMLs? And then how do we bring it to the edge? And we'll show a quick demo as well. So quick introduction. My name is Yigal Blum. I'm a principal software engineer at Red Hat. Previously at Cetera Network doing network attached storage. So that's where I actually first met MinIO because we were using MinIO again as like a possible backend to S3 for our actual storage. I'm part of the ecosystem engineering where we kind of join different teams in different projects to accelerate and see how we can provide solutions that are more than one customer or product and provide an ecosystem solution for that. And currently I'm working with a team called Containers on Wheels, where we try to, we defined Red Hat's vision in terms of how containers should be used in automotive space. So what's build once, run anywhere? So it's coined by Sun Microsystems, referred to Java, being able to write it once and run it anywhere. But now when we look at container images, basically we're able to do that even in a larger scale. We can package the entire application, build the container image once, and then we can run it anywhere we want, and has not only our application, but also all its dependencies, everything that we expect to have there. So that's what we're taking that to another step. So what do we need to run a container? So basically there are two key elements: the container image itself that we built, and then there are running instruction. How should that container run? Or if we look at Will's demonstration, he had that command line from hell that he brought up from his history, because you don't want to type it in every time. So that is one option. You can use command line arguments. Some people use Docker compose file, but in many cases, when you deploy in the cloud, you use Kubernetes, and then you use a Kubernetes YAML. There are probably other options. People use other kind of container runtimes, but these, I guess, three of the main possibilities. The thing is that when you use the Podman, also has the capability of kubeplay. This means that you can use a K3s, you can use a Kubernetes YAML file, and then you can use that with Podman. This means that you can reuse your Kubernetes YAML not only when running with Kubernetes, but also when running locally using Podman. But Podman is daemonless, so who will monitor my container? What I'm going to do when that container stops? So for that, we use systemd. So basically, when we run Podman as a daemon or any other container runtime that has a daemon, we usually use systemd or something similar to monitor that daemon that monitors our containers. So we can have systemd monitor our containers to begin with. Currently, we have a tool called Podman Generate Systemd that will help you generate a systemd unit file. And soon we will we have a upcoming utility called Quadlet that will facilitate the creation of these systemd unit files in a way that there's more that the user can customize it better. What about the edge? What did I say it goes to the edge? So OS Build is a tool for composing OS images out of RPMs. It allows, in addition to installing RPMs, it also allows embedding container images into the OS image. It also allows embedding files, such as the Kubernetes YAMLs and the systemd unit files, into the image. It also allows enabling services. So if we put everything together, if we compose an image we compose an OS image that has the container images and these files in them, then it will automatically run our container using systemd to monitor it. And then we have an image for the edge that we can reuse. Some OS build information. I don't know how much you're familiar with OS build. Anyone?
I know how to spell it, but beyond that, not much.
Okay, so OS build basically has different steps that you define what you want to do. So in addition to installing RPMs, this is this type of step that says that you can use Scopio. Scopio is a tool for copying container images. So you can copy it from a registry into the image, and at the end you'll have it locally. It receives two parameters, the source and the tag, and there's a third optional that is a name, so you can rename it locally. But if you want to keep the original FQDN, then you just leave the source, and then it gets saved locally it will be saved into your image. Similarly, you can embed, as I said, you can embed the unit and Kubernetes YAML files into your system. You can see that and then you can also enable the service. So we have the list of enabled services. Let's look at a demo. So as I said, I can reuse everything. So I have this directory that has these Kubernetes YAML, right? So I have this small application that is comprised of 3 services. One is a implementation of a communication protocol called SumIP that uses a storage to communicate, to facilitate communication. And then I have 2 services. One is an engine. One, it simulates an engine. The other one simulates a radio. The engine sends a notification that it's gone into the reverse. And whenever it goes to the reverse, the radio decreases the volume. And then when the engine goes disabled, it says it's out of reverse, the radio will increase the volume. So what we can do, as I said, we can do all 3 things. So we can run Podman play. Check that I don't have anything running. Podman Q play. Oh, sorry for that. Oh, it's the old version of Podman. Sorry. Just happened. Oh, it wouldn't have been a demo if everything was running, right?
Yeah, it's the joy of live demos.
Yeah, exactly.
Demo gods.
The problem is I don't even remember what I'm running here that could do this. So I'm going to skip the Podman for a second. Let's do. I have an OpenShift cluster running, so let's run that one for now. So what I do, I'm applying the same YAML file creating a namespace, and then applying the same YAML file. The YAML file will create both a persistent volume and also my application. The warning is about security context that I should have set. Similarly, I'm going to run apply the engine and the radio. Now I have the SumIP already running. I have everything running, and if I look at the logs from the radio, oh, I have an error. That's great. No, okay, is it? Oh, come on. Yeah, so my cluster died. I'm sorry for that. I'm going to jump into my image. Yeah, something didn't work today very well. Sorry for that. So
Okay.
I already have it. Sorry. Yeah. No, I have this local cluster that dies every week, I guess. Something doesn't like there with the storage. Doesn't like the storage. So I was talking about being able to create an image. So the same files that are here are actually used in an image file that I'm creating here. So we can see here, we can see the excerpts of what I was showing earlier, the copy of Scopio, the copy of the YAML file for the vSumIP, etc. You can see that it copies everything. And once I create an image, this is an image I can convert into an AWS image. I'm building an ARM image, by the way. And I built an AutoSD image. AutoSD is the automotive SIG distribution, I guess we'll call it. And now I have an AutoSD image running, and I have my radio service that it's running there. And I look at the logs coming out of the radio service. This is what I'm expecting to see. So you see I'm lowering it on reverse, goes to 30%, and then restoring it to 50% because it was canceled, and volume and the song changes, volume again goes down, goes up according to those messages. So I'm really, really sorry for all these hiccups in my demo. Should have checked it, I guess, earlier. Don't know why it didn't work. I did check it earlier, but I guess I left some leftovers that stopped working. That is basically my demo. Any questions? Okay, so I can see.
So this really looks like a really easy way to be able, as you say, run something in a local Podman, but also run it via Kubernetes. Should you want to? So that's fantastic to me. I would love to. I'm definitely going to be talking with my counterpart on the admin side and say, hey, maybe we should look at this.
Yeah. So let me show you this. So basically,
yeah.
Where am I? Here. So you can actually see that, like, let's look at the vSumIP YAML file. So basically, it is the same. So so this is a regular Kubernetes YAML file. Nothing special about it. I have the storage class set just because that's my cluster, but you don't even have to set it. Kubernetes, Podman knows how to handle persistent volume claims and turning them into volumes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I can. Let me think. If I change this, I'll be able to.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've used this stuff when deploying to K3S and for things like the traffic ingress and other things like that. The Podman kubeplay just ignores the kinds it doesn't understand and deploys the deployments and PVCs and all that stuff. It's pretty slick.
But it's not running.
We've been using Kubernetes for a variety of stuff with MinIO now for a while. We actually had one of our guys just pulling his hair out because he had a problem with the networking. At one point, it was weird. So he ended up basically giving everybody a static IP address on the unroutable.
Now everything should run successfully. So see, when I run the same YAML file, it creates the volume, it runs the pod, and then I'll run the engine as well.
That is great.
And the radio. And I have everything running here. I have all the different, so you can see the radio, the engine, the vSUM IP. And if I do from the radio pod, we'll see the same messages that we saw earlier in the image, right? So same list of the list of songs, and again the volume increases and decreases according to notifications coming from. So you can reuse your Kubernetes YAMLs using Podman. So if you're testing stuff and you don't need the whole system and you want to run something very local, very helpful. If you're running your tests, you want to run them locally. Again, Podman will do the work for you.
That is awesome. Love it.
Any other questions?
That's great. One last call for questions on this. Okay. Well, then we're going to move into the open forum and questions, which we have none pre-staged. Does anybody have any questions in general for Podman, or going back to the other topics of the day?
Are there any tentative plans or anything for when the Quadlet stuff is going to land in a Podman release, and if so, when that's going to be in RHEL?
It'll land in 4.4. Can you hear me? Just
yes,
checking mic check. It'll land in 4.4. I will defer to Tom as to whether we've talked about 4.4 landing in RHEL. I don't recall offhand.
Yes, we have. So that will be in. I've got to think hard for numbers. That'll be 8.8 and 9.2. Yes. 8.8 and 9.2.
Nice.
And then I would cue Valentin for any other comments he'd like to make about Quadlet.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether Quadlet will land immediately in RHEL. I'm not sure about these plans. Usually things have to, be used in Fedora a bit before going to RHEL. So if we shipped it with 4.4, it could happen that depending on the release cycle that it would be released in RHEL before Fedora. Usually, the order should be different, but it's probably product management to decide and the urgency of other teams. But I love Quadlet. It's great work. Really simplifies things a lot.
I'm impressed with it. I started looking at it a couple of days ago. I've been kind of exploring the fringy edges of stateful volumes and Podman and different ways to get things going on individual nodes. And the process with Quadlet is pretty nice. And especially there was the stateful volume problem that we had in Podman Kubeplay in 4.3.0. Quadlet seems like it might be a much cleaner way of handling some of that stuff. As far as the idempotence of volume creation and so on. Really excited to see that kind of hit the products.
Other questions, or Brent or Matt, do you have any announcements that you wanted to make?
Yep. Would you mind? I'm going to put a link in the chat. Would you mind just showing the link? I'm concerned my machine will crash.
Okay.
Given that I didn't test it. There's the link. Just want to make a small announcement that we are moving to a WordPress approach for our blogging to simplify things for our team to blog as well as contributors. And if Tom can share the site, he's got the same problem I do. I'll just go ahead. We made this change for simplifying some processes as well as some future website changes that are going to continue to be made around Podman and containers. Even though the URL I provided says Podman.io, it's really meant for containers as a whole. Our GitHub repo containers would be a good example of what we intend here. It's still coming together, but useful blogs are beginning to be posted. In fact, there's a very fresh one from Dan today. And one from me yesterday. Just go down there. The dropping capabilities bit is from Dan, just from today. We're going to try to do more of this kind of outreach. And of course would welcome contributions. Again, anything under the containers org seems to be fair game. As a topic, you can write a blog, you can write an article, whatever you'd like. Any questions? Okay. Well, there'll be a lot of link tidying up and changes like this, getting older blogs ported over to the WordPress thing so that we still retain all that good stuff. So you'll see that, and we've been doing a good job about releases here as well, announcing releases. The intent then is to wire this up to the usual social media blasters so that we have a way to prompt people as well. So you'll see all that kind of come together in the next few weeks. Particularly as we gain more confidence with the tooling.
Good to me. So far. I think it'll getting better as we move along.
Indeed. We also intend to, we have a label for some issues that are reported against Podman at least, that says blog worthy, I think is what it says. And the idea there is that either one of us or a community member should blog about the issue being reported because maybe there's something interesting there. So we would welcome that from the community as well. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, gonna stop sharing there. And do we have any other questions or comments? Matt, is there any updates for 4.3 or 4.4 that you want to talk about at this point?
4.3 is probably done at this point. We are not planning any further 4.3 releases. 4.4 RCs are expected to start rolling out early January. I expect a 4.4 final release by end of January.
And anything else, Matt?
Not that I can think of. Was there anything you had in mind?
Yeah, I was going to sprinkle a little more pixie dust out there to raise some eyebrows, and also the drive traffic. But if you folks read the last two blogs I wrote in that were posted to that new site, you'll see that I'm looking at a specific kind of technology, and you should be able to follow the breadcrumbs that lead you to what we're up to with Podman machine changes, and the ability to be able to customize and roll your own type approaches, which we continue to get requests for. It does mean some fundamental changes underneath, which we hope to obscure from users. But it's pretty cool, and I think this is kind of the future of where we're headed with Podman Machine.
Great. Any other questions, topics, or topics for next time? And if not, I'm going to wrap up early. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'll just give out the general ending reminder here that we are meeting next on Tuesday, February 7th for the Podman community meeting. And the Cabal meeting, which is generally the meeting that we have for any kind of design discussions, is coming up in just next Thursday on December 15th. That too is at 11 a.m. Happy to have any and all of you there for that one. And that one also has no topics at this moment, so we'll see what happens and see if we can get something generated for that. And given the time of year, we may end up canceling it if there's no interest for this particular one. With that, I'd like to thank you all for participating, and especially so for Will and Yigal for their presentations today.
Thanks for having me.
A good one.